Satsang-80. Brahman is always awake. 14th October, 1935. Evening Satsang. The self is always of the nature of bliss, in which there is never any sickness. The self is always safe, never breaking, and nothing can go away from it. All material things are likely to be damaged or increased. When you experience any material thing being damaged, you think that you have sustained this damage. The individual imagines that he himself is somehow damaged. The self has no things in it. There is nothing in it that can be damaged or will decay. It is without any dirt. This means that there are no material articles in it. That is why Atman is called clean. And as there is no dirt, Atman is indestructible. To decay is the quality of dirt. It is bound to decay and be destroyed, and to return back to the earth. However, the stainless self is indestructible. And although the self is in the body and the sense organs, the self is not affected by them. The self has neither birth nor death. Death can only be spoken about in relation to the body. The self is never corrupted and is without parts. It is not put together with various parts or the sum of any parts. If you want to know what Atman is, this self is that which gives life to the body and knows the body. When we say that knowledge is temporary, we mean that the knowledge in the mind is temporary. The speech ends, but consciousness remains. Had a man not been aware of himself, he would not have returned home when he had gone out for some work. The desires pertaining to the sense organs eventually die, but the essential nature of knowledge, consciousness, remains. Childhood, youth, and old age are just states of the body. These are natural phases for every material thing. By the medium of the vital energy, or Prana, these states are understood when they come. However, the Prana itself does not become young or old. Its quality of energy remains the same. When Prana has no change in its state, how can the self, who is the Prana of the Prana, the life energy of the vital energy, have these states? Eggs, the combination of heat and moisture, live birth, and seeds. These are the four sources in the creation of all beings. In all beings, prana functions only by the power of the self. The states like childhood, adulthood, and old age do not have any effect on the prana. So then how can they affect the self? The individual, by his own wrong concept, binds himself in desire. And that is bondage. I will explain. Whatever you want is at a certain place. If you want it, you have to go where it is located. You have to wait there until you get what you want. And sometimes the desire is fulfilled. Then when you get what you want, and it cannot be carried away from that location, you have to remain there. For only there can you enjoy that object or use it. When the object desired cannot come with us, we have to live near that object because we are needy. This is the bondage because of desire. If you do not wish to be bound, you have to give up your desire. Where there is desire, there is detention, bondage, which means having residence, living in the world of objects. Desire entails being in the vicinity of the object. When desire dies, bondage departs. By giving up desire, liberation is certain. However, to harbor desire is itself bondage. When all the desires are dropped forever, one becomes reality. While the individual, with all its desires holding him tight, goes downward towards destruction, lost in illusion. The self is untouched by all qualities or modifications. It is said by some that in the waking state, the self is veiled by the limits of that state. However, if this were the case, one would not have the knowledge of the dream state and would stay tied to one state only and would have continued to eat only either sweet or only bitter things. But the self is not like that. This means the self is unaffected, although in the body. In the dream state, the self functions only through the mind without the help of a physical body or sense organs. When the self goes beyond the dream in deep sleep, it remains alone without any sheath or body. There is no ripple of any kind. You may say, where is the self? There is nothing there. But this is not really the case. Who is it that can say that he was happily asleep? Who is it that answers to the call given to him by the name which is given to the body? None of this would be possible without Atman. The deep sleep and waking states are of the physical body only, and not of the self. Atman, being a witness of all the three states, cannot be nothing, but is the Supreme Self. You may ask, how is it that when the self awakens from sleep, it cannot remember again all the environments of the waking state? Listen closely to the explanation. Environmental circumstances are in relation to the intellect or brain, and not the self. If the intellect is transformed, the worldly life becomes unreal, and there is no bondage or freedom from anything. Worldly life exists because you say so. You conceive it as so. It is real only because of your concepts. If you say, I have dropped the illusion of the worldly life, then the worldly life and any bondage is gone, totally destroyed. If you increase worldly attachment, they increase, and if you destroy them, they are destroyed. Mind is the source of worldly life as well as spiritual life. While going to sleep, you remove your outer garments, and when you wake up, you again put them on. In deep sleep, you are not aware of the body covering on the self. When you wake up, you see, and by your attention, you remember everything. The one whose ignorance and egoism is gone, it is all only Brahman, even the waking state. The individual gets dissolved and becomes Param Atman, the Supreme Self. Then there is no desire of any sort. There is no simile to be used. The meaning of simile in this case is something that is used in order to show that the knowledge of the nature of truth is like something else. But here there is nothing equal to it, or anything similar to it that can be shown. Nor is there any word that can be used to describe that state, or its meaning fully and adequately. There is no form, object, or words which can compare to that state. Therefore, that state is called beyond simile, or it is said that no simile is available to explain it. Since for it, there are no other things. The entire world is only absolute consciousness, Para Brahman, or Param Atman, the Supreme Self. When self-knowledge is evident, there is only happiness itself. Happy to be. Bliss itself revels in bliss. One who will be a selfless devotee will have the experience when illusion is discarded. This is why devotion should be continuous. One must never forget to devote oneself. There must be no forgetfulness. When some other object or achievement becomes attractive to the individual, and he thinks about that object, he forgets his devotion to God. Therefore, saints and sages insist on incessant devotion. When the devotee discards desire for money and children and material riches and fame in society, and indulges totally in the devotion to God, then the dirt on consciousness is cleaned, and it becomes one with God, abiding in its true nature, Swarupa. When the love and devotion for God increases, the sayings of the Vedas are subservient to the devotee. That which the Vedas have declared to be the highest truth is then uttered very naturally. It is then that existence is experienced as one total whole. This is the devotion of the highest degree. This devotion liberates everyone without any discrimination. However, if the mind is not clear, then there will not be light of the self. One who has unbiased devotion reaches reality. The veil over his eyes disappears. The sun and the multitude of things are seen at once, directly. When one drops all pride and the mind becomes free of doubt, everything is seen as Brahman. King Janaka asked, "How is one to carry out one's duties after realization? And how is the bondage of action or karma broken? How does one remain free from any stains, even while doing one's duty? And by what remedy are the ties of karma broken or loosened? How can one achieve the state of inaction, although performing actions? And how can one meet the Supreme Being, God? Please tell, why is it that the sage Sanaka and others did not give answers to the questions of children?" These questions asked by Janaka are difficult to answer. The sage that he asked said at that time, "The problem of action, wrong action, and non-action is not an ordinary one. The lawmakers who thought about these matters were tired, and great sages were at a loss how to explain these things. Millions of seers have exhausted their brains, and in the end quarreled amongst themselves out of pride. It was not easy even for Brahma the Creator to give proper divisions and analysis of actions. Action is at the root of the Veda, and the Veda is Narayan only. It is at this point that the Vedas keep quiet. Action, non-action, and wrong action are in a way all the same. Like in the case of sugar, where you have a soft, a white, and a brown sugar, and yet sugar all the same. In a similar way, action is one, yet the one who is attached to action finds various differences. In action, non-action is inherent. In wrong action, again inherent are action and non-action. If any action is started, it is called action or karma. To differentiate between good and bad is vikarma, which means wrong action. The disappearance of action is non-action or karma, which means that the action is as if it had not taken place. The one who knows that the non-doer is the true doer has become a sage. He has attained actionlessness. King Janaka came to realize that the actor and the one who causes action is only one in this body. Only then you will be actionless. The doer who exists at the beginning of action is himself the receiver of its results. Only by the blessing of the Sadguru is the state of freedom from action achieved. There are many actions arising out of one action, and they are called right or wrong actions. However, by the teachings of the Sadguru, all actions, all karmas are cut off. The song of karma is like this. So this question is very big. That is why the sage Sanaka and others did not impart this knowledge to children who were not mature. These differences of action and non-action must not be told to those who are not mature enough to understand. The Supreme Self is, at all times, without any disturbances and without any impediments. It is permanently indestructible and perfectly clean. Be certain that you are that.